Hello teachers, welcome back and thank you for joining me for our teacher's introduction of PoPoDoo and PoPoDoo Smart English. And today is our third video of 4, okay? And we are working on long-term objectives, okay? The broad themes of what it means to be a teacher at PoPoDoo using our PoPoDoo Smart English material. So let's jump straight into it. Now, we have our 6 books. We start off with our pink and green journey, which is pretty much our first year, okay? And in our first year, our kids are usually about 3 years old. Some of them might be a little bit older. It depends on your school. However, in any case, in the first year, this should be the year where students are kind of getting used to English, are being introduced to it. They're unfamiliar, but it's supposed to be a gentle introduction into this language. Our students are also getting used to a class. So what does that mean? It means that they're getting used to routines. So you as the teacher have got to make sure that your routines are well structured. You have to make sure that your class is well organized, okay? That means the furniture, that means the whiteboard, that means the procedures, okay? And in terms of your classroom rules and control, you need to make sure that the rules that you set for your students are always the same. If you're changing your boundaries, if you're changing your rules, your students get confused, they get unhappy, and they will have bad behavior as a result. Therefore, you as the teacher need to make sure that your rules and your instruction is very clear and very regular, okay, very stable. You cannot be changing these things all of the time. And therefore your classroom control should be much, much better. Students are also learning, or children are also learning how to be students, okay? It's not necessarily a natural thing for them to be sitting in a classroom and watching a teacher. So therefore you as the teacher have got to make it as engaging and as entertaining and as productive as possible, as well as slowly mold your students into being well-behaved individuals, well-behaved so that they can learn. If you have a class full of monkeys, well, then you're not going to be able to teach them very well. So it is your job to make sure that you are developing a learner, you're developing a student. Okay, and then finally for number 6, most of what we're doing in our first year is input. You are giving a lot out to these students. You're giving out 110%. And you'll be lucky, very, very lucky, if you get back 50%. In fact, if you're getting 50% back, you're doing a good job. The point is that you as the teacher are having to give out a lot, because at this stage of the student's development, or the child's development, they are needing to bring things in, okay? And it's your job to then guide them to where you need them to be. All right, now let's move on to our next journey. That'll be yellow and azure. All right, so in our second year, okay, sometimes it might be a little bit more than the second year, but certainly in the second phase of education, okay? In our yellow journey and azure journey, that is level C and level D, we want to improve and increase interpersonal skills. So as the child is developing and getting older, we want them to be able to reach out to their classmate. We want them to be able to be polite. We want them to be able to interact in a very congenial way. So for example, may I borrow a crayon? Can I borrow your eraser? Something like this. Or, oops, you dropped your pencil. Here it is. Thank you, you're welcome. Those kinds of things and that kind of classroom language is very important, not only in terms of acquiring the language, but certainly in terms of their behavior and in terms of the way in which they interact with each other. Okay, and then of course, by extension, the teacher. We also want to make sure that we are reinforcing any positive behavior. We want our students to be good little boys and girls. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That is exactly what they need to be. They need to be well behaved, they need to be polite, and in this way, we are able to teach them in a far more efficient manner. We also want to be able to give them some minor tasks, give them the opportunity of being a little bit more responsible. So that means, for example, maybe the teacher can give a student the pile of books, and that student can then hand it out to his friends. That would be quite a reasonable thing to do. Or if the teacher needs those books collected, another student could come along and say, who wants to be a little teacher? Teacher me? Okay, fine. You can collect all the books. Something like putting flashcards on the floor, taking them up again, maybe even erasing the lower part of the whiteboard, okay? Something like this. But the point is that you want to give your students responsibility and develop their sense of independence. Okay, next one. We also want to make sure that our students are familiar with language chunks and not just speaking in single words, okay? And if the students are going to be speaking with a bit more fluency, increased fluency, you as the teacher need to then make sure that you are teaching those chunks. If you're not teaching chunks and only words, the only thing you're going to get back is words. Now, as I've said before, in our first year, Pink and Green Journey, there's a lot of input. We're starting to really support the output of our students. We really want them to be able to reproduce and to be kind of easy with English and not simply be prompted every single time that we want them to speak. So instead of the teacher initializing the questions, we need to encourage our students to ask us questions spontaneously. Okay, so that's our second year. Now we move into our third year, and again, we basically want to build on the foundations that we've developed in the first and second year. So classroom responsibilities would be increased, and not only increased in terms of responsibilities, but also perhaps in complexity as well. Maybe some students could be given the task of writing a name on the whiteboard, or their names on the whiteboard, or their own name on the whiteboard. Something like this, that would be quite great. In terms of writing, we're not expecting our students to be able to write sentences, although if you can get them to do that, that would be great. And by a sentence, I really mean it is a black cat. Okay, that's 5 words, that's a sentence. So my meaning is that writing would really be making sure that the handwriting, for example, for letters or for words, is being developed, okay? So you want them to be able to have beautiful letters. It is part of your job to make sure that their writing is good. Okay, as I've mentioned before, complex challenges. We want to make sure that they are developing in their education. So we're going to give them responsibilities and challenges that are more and more complex. And you as a teacher will have a great imagination for that. You could have students to, for example, if you have a project in the classroom, you give the students responsibility to tell their parents to bring a piece of fruit into the classroom. So for example, little Johnny brings in an apple, little Mary brings in a banana, little Jeff brings in a peach, whatever it might be. And then you'll be using that for the lessons. What I'm saying is that you're going to be increasing the complexity and increasing the responsibility levels for your students. Okay. We also want to make sure that our students are getting self-motivated. So as time goes by, they are not simply coming to the class because they are forced to, or because they need to, or whatever it might be, but because they really, really want to. They're really excited to see you. They're really excited to see all of the teachers, the whole school, as well as interested in learning the next thing and interested in joining and participating in the class. And that is 100% the responsibility of you, the teacher. Finally, output and synthesis. This is an extremely high level of what we want. Now, you'll be doing output and synthesis all through your education and all through the child's journey. However, by our third year, our students really need to be owning the language. They really need to be synthesizing and constructing sentences that you've never taught them before. For example, you have already taught them the months of the year, so that's January, February, March. You have already now taught them seasons, okay, winter, summer, spring, fall, or winter, summer, spring, autumn. And then you can say, then students need to be able to say, I play tennis in June. That's when it's summer, something like that, okay? And so the point is that they're synthesizing so many years of accrued knowledge, of their accrued English language, okay? So that's what I mean by synthesis and outputs. Great. All right, teachers, well, those are our levels, and I hope you now have a good understanding of the broad objectives that we are wanting to achieve with our students over a period of around 3 years. So thank you very much. And in our next video, we will take a look inside. Okay, so I'm just going to say right now, thanks. And this has been part 3 of our part 4 series. I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much and goodbye.